The water never arrives all at once. It begins with rain, soft, rhythmic, ordinary. Then rivers swell, tides climb, and within hours an entire province can become an ocean. This is the story of how China's coastal heartland is learning to live with water, and how the floods of 2025 tested that promise like never before. For weeks, warm currents from the South China Sea and cold northern air collided above the mainland, feeding storm after storm. Rain clouds gathered and refused to leave. From Guangdong to Jiangxi, rainfall totals broke century-old records. In the city of Guangzhou, commuters stepped from subways into knee-deep water. Farther north in Anhui, swollen tributaries poured into the Yangtze, forcing the release of reservoirs designed to protect millions downstream. Engineers call it controlled flooding. For residents, it felt anything but controlled. The river that defines a nation, China's longest river, the Yangtze, is both lifeline and threat. It carries more water than any other river in Asia and supports almost a third of the country's population. But when the monsoon intensifies, the same river that powers factories and irrigates rice fields can also submerge entire towns. In July 2025, sensors at the Three Gorges Dam recorded inflows at their highest since 1998. To relieve pressure, floodgates opened in sequence, releasing walls of water that thundered down the valley. Villages along the banks watched the current rise centimeter by centimeter, hoping the embankments would hold. At the dam's control center, dozens of engineers monitored readings in silence. Every meter of water height translates into megawatts of energy and potential catastrophe if the walls fail. Outside, helicopters ferried emergency crews and supplies to cut off communities. Flood barriers sprouted overnight across city streets. Soldiers stacked sandbags where digital flood maps glowed red. Lessons from history: China has faced floods since its earliest dynasties. The Great Floods of 1931 killed millions. Since then, engineers have reshaped entire landscapes to keep the water in check. Dams, levees, spillways, and drainage canals stretching for thousands of kilometers. But climate change has rewritten the old equations. The atmosphere now holds more moisture, and rainfall patterns have grown erratic. According to the China Meteorological Administration, extreme precipitation events have increased by nearly 25% in the past 4 decades. That means a storm that used to strike once a century may now appear every 20 years or sooner. The cities below sea level, few realize that parts of China's coast, including areas of Shanghai, Tianjin, and Ningbo, already sit below mean sea level. Decades of groundwater extraction have caused subsidence, lowering the land by up to 2 meters in some districts. Add rising seas and heavier storms, and the danger multiplies. To fight back, engineers are turning to both old wisdom and new technology. Shanghai's drainage system now combines Dutch-style floodgates with sponge city design, parks and plazas that double as reservoirs during heavy rain. Smart sensors track every centimeter of tide and rainfall, sending instant alerts to city command centers. When storms hit, traffic lights turn red in flood risk zones, rerouting vehicles automatically. The system is part of a national project known as Blue Shield, linking coastal defenses from Hong Kong to Tianjin. Inside the storm of 2025 and early August 2025, a slow-moving monsoon depression parked itself over eastern China. Meteorologists named it Severe Storm Ruian. For 6 straight days, rain fell on already saturated ground. Satellite imagery showed rivers spreading like ink across the plains of Zhejiang and Fujian. By day 3, more than 500,000 people had been relocated. In the city of Wenzhou, residents built makeshift walkways from wooden doors. Farmers ferried livestock to higher ground in fishing boats. In Jiangxi's Poyang Lake, China's largest freshwater body, water levels rose to their highest in a decade to 22.9 meters. Local officials faced an impossible choice: release floodwater to protect the dam system, or risk losing entire districts downstream. They chose the release. Dozens of small farming villages were deliberately flooded, their residents compensated and evacuated before the gates opened. For many, it was déjà vu. Similar decisions had been made during the 2020 floods. But this time, new modeling and real-time communication meant 0 casualties, a small miracle in a storm of such scale. Science as defense: behind every evacuation is an invisible army of scientists. Meteorologists at the National Climate Center analyze terabytes of satellite data each day. AI models trained on decades of typhoon tracks now predict storm intensity up to 5 days earlier than before. Hydrologists run digital twins of river basins, simulating how every dam and reservoir will respond under different rainfall scenarios. And in research labs in Nanjing and Wuhan, prototypes of floating architecture are being tested. Buildings designed to rise and fall with the water. It's not science fiction. It's survival engineering. The human cost numbers can't capture what floods take. In Guangdong's Shaoguan district, families return to find mud-streaked walls marking the waterline halfway up their homes. Shop owners swept silt from floors where merchandise once stood. Children helped clear debris from playgrounds. Government relief funds covered damages, but emotional scars remain longer. Local volunteer networks, born after the 2021 floods, delivered food, water, and medicine to isolated areas by boat. One volunteer, a retired teacher, told reporters, "Every time the river rises, we learn again that community is stronger than water." A glimpse of the future. As the floodwaters receded, China's State Council announced a new national water security plan. It invests billions in early warning systems, river restoration, and relocation of at-risk populations. But beyond infrastructure lies a cultural shift, embracing coexistence with water rather than total control. Wetlands once drained for construction are being restored. Farmers receive incentives to plant flood-tolerant crops. Architects design homes elevated on concrete stilts. The goal is not to defy nature, but to flow with it. The lesson: the 2025 flood season will be remembered not only for its destruction but for what it revealed. That even in one of the world's most engineered nations, nature still writes the final draft. The question is how quickly humanity can edit its plans. As a typhoon forms more over the South China Sea, radar loops begin again, screens light up, and engineers brace for the next test. Because in this part of the world, water is never just water, it's destiny. You don't stop the river, says Professor Shen. You learn its rhythm. And in that rhythm lies the story of modern China, powerful, fragile, and always at the edge of the rising sea. If you found this documentary meaningful, subscribe for more in-depth stories about climate, engineering, and resilience across our changing planet.